Thank you, Kathy. And the kids always do a good job. I always wondered how many people cheered for Jesus on that first Palm Sunday. To be honest with you, I don't think it was that many. Was it 50? Was it 100? I doubt it was more than that. For sure, I'm sure it's nothing like all those people that went to the Horseshoe yesterday, those 60,000 or so, and saw the spring practice of Ohio State Buckeyes. And I think it also goes that same way with the palm branches. I wonder just how many really cut down palm branches from those trees and spread them on the road. Maybe it's just my skeptical nature, but it's hard for me to believe that a huge crowd followed Jesus when he entered Jerusalem on his last Sunday. Why do I challenge how many people followed Jesus? Because Jesus didn't fit in. He didn't fit in. Let's be honest about Jesus. He was a peasant. He came from the backwaters of Israel, from a town called Nazareth in Galilee. One of his disciples even said about the town he came from, Nazareth, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Jesus had no pedigree. And when he was brought to Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor must have wondered, what's this man doing in front of me? I've never even heard of him. And for sure, Pilate knew that he was no king. He wasn't the king of the Jews. A king has a throne. A king has a palace. A king has an army, has administrators and servants to serve him. And who did Jesus have? Just a ragtag bunch of people who were no accounts. Beggars and cripples and lepers, the uneducated, the unclean. Just about every outcast that you can think of was following Jesus. And they must have been a sorry sight when they marched into Jerusalem that Sunday. Are you the king of the Jews? The king of the Jews? When Pilate asked that question, it was pretty apparent what the answer would be. Jesus wasn't a king. He didn't fit the mold that kings are made out of. No one obeyed his laws. They obeyed Caesar's laws, the Roman emperor's laws. That's what Pilate was doing, administrating the Roman laws, the emperor's laws. And he had the army, and he had the weapons, and he had all that he needed, everything to make sure that Caesar's laws were obeyed. And that's exactly what he told Jesus. Do you not know that I have the power to release you or the power to crucify you? Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. The crowd was cheering really for the wrong man. Jesus had no power, and soon that would be oh so obvious. Not long after the cheering stopped, where do we find Jesus? We find him before Pilate. And he's not there just to share pleasantries with Pilate. Jesus is there because he's been accused of treason. And no one stands up for him. Absolutely no one stands up for him. The only ones present are Pilate and the priests and the elders. Those who he had healed, those who were closest to him, his disciples, those who said that they believed in him, all those who had cheered him just as we did out there by the river today, they were all gone. Not a single one of them remained. So there he was, all alone, before Pilate. Really, he didn't fit in. Pilate knew that the accusations of treason against Jesus were not true, but no one was there to defend Jesus. And Jesus himself said hardly a word. He stood there mute. Pilate waited and waited, but Jesus said not a word. The priests and the elders were demanding blood, and so was a crowd that the elders had stirred up. But Jesus said not a word. And Pilate was in a quandary. What do I do? And then he came up with this idea. Maybe someone would stand up for Jesus if he gave them a choice. So Pilate gave the crowd a choice. And he thought the choice was a no-brainer. He would put before them Jesus, but also a no-good person by the name of Barabbas. And Pilate would then let the crowd decide between these two. Everyone knew that Barabbas had made horrible crimes. There was no question about that. Barabbas should be executed. You would have thought that it was a very, very simple choice to have freed Jesus. But they didn't. Pilate asked, who should I free, Jesus or Barabbas? And the crowd shouted, Barabbas. Well, what should I do with Jesus? Crucify him. Crucify him. That's the proof that Jesus didn't fit in. Who wants Jesus? Who will take him in? The crowd didn't. Maybe you don't realize this, but we're being asked to make a choice today. Really, it's you and I who are being asked to make a choice. Our gospel writer who wrote this thing that we'll be doing in a little bit, Matthew, is asking us to make a choice. Do we want Jesus or do we want Barabbas? Who should be freed? Well, to us it's pretty obvious that Jesus should be freed, but that's not how the crowd decided. You know they're yell, Barabbas. We want Barabbas. And Jesus, when Pilate pointed to Jesus, they said, crucify him. Put him to death. Put him to death. We don't know why, but for whatever reason, they thought Jesus was a loser. They were sure he didn't fit in. So who fits in? Those who make lots of money? Those who are beautiful and handsome? Those who are powerful and strong? Those who are smarter than anyone else? Or is it those who are humble, who turn the other cheek, who love their enemies, who have learned how to forgive, who accept those whom no one else will accept? Who knows the way to God? Is it the rich and powerful, or is it Jesus? Though Jesus doesn't run with kings, he runs with God. For God fits him in. And that's exactly where Jesus goes, to God. Even at the cross, Jesus goes to God. Isn't that what Jesus means when he says, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit? And what does God do? God takes him in. And that's really what counts. Not Pilate, not the crowd, but God. For if God takes you in, you are in. Palm Sunday praise, our praise, the world's praise, really all those praises do not count. What counts is God's. And how does God praise Jesus? God calls him Son. Those were his words to Jesus at his baptism. Those were his words to Jesus at his transfiguration. And now they are God's words at the cross. Maybe the world doesn't praise Jesus. Maybe the world doesn't cheer for Jesus. But God does. He cheers for Jesus. He takes him in. Even at the cross, God takes him in. Why don't you take him in?